Firstly, I'm Simon Lovesey, one of the co-organisers of the Sailjuice Winter Series. I'm joined by Simon Horsfield, who's our Navigators and General Coach, and also Chris Carver of Orca Met, who'll be going through some weather details. So, yeah, Simon, great to complete 8 events, wasn't it? And 24 races. I think, despite a bit of a wobble around the sort of new year, I think it's been a good year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and often reflect back on last year where we didn't get all the races, and this year we have, and had a variety of conditions, predominantly in the light to moderate, but we've had a few. We've certainly had one big blast. Reflecting back on at the Dacia Flyer, Simon.
Yeah, a few. Yeah, so we're obviously going through some of the video and the pictures for presentation on Saturday at the RYA Dinghy Show, but yes, good sort of contrast. But yeah, great to finish on a high. What beautiful weather we had at Oxford. Perhaps not as windy as we wanted, but some great racing. So let's crack on.
Yeah, so we're fleet of 66 boats, Simon, across 33 classes, ranging from a topper all the way up to a muster skiff. And you can see in the photo here from I think the first start, beautiful light wind winter sailing, and yeah, you know, when I'm looking out my window now, it's definitely the right weather we had on Saturday.
Yes, and then it was horrible on Sunday.
Indeed, it was. Yes.
Right. Okay. So we'll do a bit more of the weather with Steve, but yeah, a bit of a quick overview, Simon.
Yeah, basically the wind was, a range of sort of like 0 to 10 knots, and it sort of like started solid and then gradually faded away, and then picked up around race 2, race 3 before dipping. So probably the average was probably somewhere around 5 to 6 knots. Yeah, so more than enough to go racing. And I was worried at one point that it might die away, but actually it was good. But we'll let Steve get into the detail.
Yeah, and certainly Oxford did a cracking job of getting the 3 races in, because it did die, I think, when we were going home, wasn't it? And,
yeah, they did really well. There was a fast turnaround. They started promptly, and yeah, no messing around, and yeah, so yeah, great organisation. So thank you to Oxford Sailing Club for that.
And interestingly, when we got home late that night, the wind completely changed, didn't it? And we had a new front coming in, so it got quite windy overnight, and then died away. So. We hit the sweet spot. Right, Simon, where do we go now?
Yeah, so we're going to have a look at brief look at race 1 and the start, and then link in the forecast that Steve will talk in depth about to your race strategy, which certainly, I listened to Steve with interest of what was going to happen at Oxford, and off the back of that plan what was going to happen really, and Steve's going to give his view. After that, I've got a little bit on the top reach and how to attack the top reach. So between marks 1 and 2, how to attack mark 3 in the super light conditions. I've got a bit of video, and then yeah, just really planning ahead really is the key in trying to keep out of clusters of boats where there's no wind. So that's sort of like the shape of my debrief, Simon.
Yeah, and I think actually interestingly, we got a picture of the ISO here from Bowmore, and it shows the contrast, doesn't it? Here they are fully powered up. Picture before was the snipe drifting around, and actually I think, as you said, they were heading to a different mark, weren't they? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, very big wind range really, and yeah, this was the period where the wind had just picked up, so I think midday-ish.
Probably almost into double figures, wasn't it?
It was.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so this looks like one of the more lighter moments.
So yeah, this picture actually was taken at 13:26, which is important, and Steve again might look back at that. So, but this is when the wind had actually shifted in race 3, which is quite interesting. So it's not a boring picture. I was really taking a picture of a cloud here to show the difference, and we'll let Steve chat about that in a bit. But really, what was my strategy? Sat in the powerboat thinking, if I were racing, what would I do? Listening to that forecast, well, I wanted to start probably on the towards a pin end, not going right on the pin end because it's a bit risky, so probably a third down from the pin, and then trying to keep either in the middle or towards the left, because there was a forecast left-hand shift. So you have to bear that in mind. So we'll chat about that a little bit. And what visual signs? Yeah, the clouds, I'll touch on very briefly.
Right.
So we've got a bit of a video here of the first start. I think it's just really just a watch back of both the slow initially and then the fast lead.
There we go.
little bit too early as a Vario.
Yeah. So you might have to mute it, yeah.
So mute it.
Yeah, so yeah, Vario sets off a little bit earlier, tacks in and compromises start, and then the Ilka here on the pin, just about, as you'll see shortly, wiggles around the pin and he's able to get away to the left. Okay, so this is a slow fleet, as you can imagine. And interestingly here, the boat that got to the windward mark first was an RS200, and that headed or set off from the middle of the line, as did the other two boats that were in the top three at the windward mark. So the middle actually paid in the end, but you can see here that the risk of racking up tight on the pin end is your eggs are all in one basket. So just perhaps don't be greedy. It was the right place to be, but yeah, just maybe try not to go too extreme on the pin.
Yes, Luke lost out there a bit.
And super light here. The breeze was dropping away for the first race start.
Right. Okay. Finish that off as we go.
So here, just on for those in the fast fleet, again, start race one here, and the Merlin ultimately comes out on top here. So quite a bit of line sag in the middle, not many boats in the middle, and a cluster at each end, but the pin end was a place to be to protect against that left-hand shift.
So there was this Aaron Holman, I think,
yeah, Aaron Holman and Tom there managed to get away out towards the left-hand side there. As I say, the key for me, and we'll see the tracker in a moment, was middle left, protecting that, as I've said several times, and it'd be interesting when we show you the track in a second, where the winning boats came from. It's always good to use a tracker. It's a great tool that you can use after the event really, and reflect upon your performance and where it went either well or badly, or where did the winners come from. And that reviewing of the footage is really useful. And Simon's extracted 3 boats here for us. So if you look down towards the bottom of the slide, you can see the 3 tracks, which predominantly the 2000, which is a blue track, the yellow track, which is a National 12, and the brown track is the RS200. And they either started in the middle or towards the pin end third. So that was in the case. You see the scattering of boats all over the place. But why do we want to do that? Well, if you want to be on the middle or the left, the middle is ideal because you can play the shift. So if it flicks left and right, as it often does, then you're going to get be able to tack on the shifts, and you're not exposing yourself to a lot of risk. If you go hard left, you're putting your eggs in the back or one basket, and equally if you go hard right. So going right was probably not the best way to go on balance, I think. Yeah,
that's it. I think these are top 3.
Yeah, the 200 was first, and then the National 12, and the 2000, which ultimately Ben and Sam Pasco wasn't in the top 3, but they were quite strong boats throughout the 3 races.
Okay. So perhaps we bring Steve from Orcamet to give a bit more detail on what happened on the boat.
Yeah, so I think looking back at the photos, there were kind of 2 really big regimes almost. So when the clouds were in, the breeze was up, and the boats definitely looked powered up, and you'll see that later in the presentation. But the big difference that's really striking for me is that there's a lot of activity, a lot of up and down between kind of that point at 12 minutes past 12. You've got gusts of 13 knots by the looks of it, with a wind speed of 10 knots, which actually is, most boats should be pretty powered up in that. And then 10 minutes later, you're getting kind of like 4 knots of breeze. So you need to be you need to be really good at changing gears when it's that shifty and that up and down, and understanding where these holes are. So for me, that's kind of the big takeaway from kind of looking at that is, you know, what are we in at the moment and what are we expecting? So if I saw 10 knots, you know, across the deck, you go, oh crikey, you know, that's pretty top end. So we expect it to drop, and we need to start planning for kind of how that looks in our kind of race strategy. We don't have wind direction on here, but I was reasonably confident that we were going to get that left shift throughout the day, and that seemed to pan out in varying levels. Obviously, the low cloud cover ends up having quite an influence on the course, so your general trend will be left, but you'll have kind of sporadic points where those low clouds, which obviously I can't forecast the morning of, I'm not quite that good yet, but those low clouds will be very dominant short term, but that long term trend is kind of what you're going to base your day around. And yeah, I'll kind of talk about that in the next couple of slides. So yeah, we've got a bit of a dying breeze. I'm not sure that quite told the full story, but actually what it does say is that I'm reasonably confident early on in the day, and then I become a lot less confident throughout the day. And it was definitely more gradient driven towards the start of the day. And then we started getting influences from more clouds, you know, as the racing started, and that is a lot harder to predict and a lot harder to kind of quantify the intensity of those clouds. So they're not necessarily forecast as well as they could be. And then, yeah, obviously looking at the wind direction, you can see that really heavy left shift. So you're kind of settling into the day, and then at midday, it's shifting left, you know, really quite dramatically. And I think Simon's got a few points to make about that later. So this was the forecast that I put out the morning of the event, and I definitely kind of have a look at that if I were racing and start taking those things into account, that kind of general trend that we're talking about, and then obviously keeping the eyes out of the boat. So this is the synoptic chart that I published as well. So you've got the low out in the middle of the Atlantic, and that warm front just to the southwest of Ireland is going to start coming into effect. So we're kind of sitting in no man's land, really, between a couple of low pressures with that high kind of coming from the Azores, basically just filling the gap. And what that means is that it's reasonably unremarkable, but there's enough kind of stuff going on in the atmosphere that we start getting that influence from small pockets of clouds, and that's kind of what defined the day, with those really short, sharp increases and the sky changing quite a lot. So yeah, if we go on to the next slide here. So yeah, this is a picture from one of the starts. I'm not sure which one, but you can see in the background we've got a lot of cumulus clouds. The sky looks probably 70-80% covered in low-lying, really well-defined clouds. You can see all the edges, and that means that we've got air moving, and that means that we're going to get wind. So if you see that upwind of the sailing area, you know that the breeze is going to increase, and also you'll be able to see the wind on the water coming down as these kind of gusts come in. And you know, you got some slight ripples there, but it's not it's definitely not terrifying. But yeah, on to the next one, please. So yeah, this was the windiest photo I could see. Again, we've got a lot of cumulus clouds. Probably behind our sponsor Magic Marine is our biggest, kind of most well-defined cloud that I could find. And the more definition and the more color you have in that cloud, the more wind you're going to get out of it. And yeah, it looks reasonably breezy. I'm kind of thinking this is probably that point that we were talking about earlier, just past midday. And yeah, no, everybody either is hiking or should be. And again, it's all driven by those kind of short, sharp cells of increased activity.
So does the color give some energy then in the cloud?
Yeah, that kind of implies kind of how much up and down the water's kind of, that's the activity that we're interested in. And the more energy that cloud has, the more wind it will give us. So a really light, quite high cloud will be reasonably insignificant, but then the lower you are and the kind of darker you are, the more wind you're going to get out of that cloud. So yeah, if we go on to the next slide, this looks pretty unremarkable. Clear sky, but it's not quite clear. It's a little bit hazy, and you can get these in between, with an incoming low pressure, with that kind of warm front. It's not. It's definitely not like a beautiful blue sky. It feels like there's a bit of something there, but yeah, we obviously don't have any low cumulus, and it feels like it looks like there's less wind on the water, and obviously there's less wind in the sails because they're struggling there. The National 12 is kind of not quite struggling to fill the sails, but it's definitely not pulling as it should be, as is not sure what class that is on the left there, but
that's one of these new Zeniths.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There you can see, 11.
Yeah, again, it's possibly set up for a little bit more breeze than it's got there, but that's probably one of those things where you've just got to look over your shoulder and realize what wind you're in, rather than the wind that you want. And then yeah, if we go on to this next picture, again, we've got very little cloud definition. It does look super hazy though. And yeah, it just looks kind of like one of those lighter patches. I'm not quite sure what time these were taken. I took them off the well, we put time on the Facebook page, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think understanding what wind you're in and what you're expecting for the next kind of 10-20 minutes is really powerful in terms of your strategy and your setup. So at the start of each leg, you should definitely be thinking about kind of just doing a really big picture look, what the weather's doing. And then obviously if you, in the back of your head, you've got that left shift coming, I'd certainly be keeping my eyes out left, seeing when that big flick's going to happen, alongside all of the local kind of lake related shifts that we get, on a normal race course.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, I think that's my part done. So
well,
leave it to
great to see the different clouds and the different wind. Really, it's all in the clouds, and it's.
It is, yeah. So many opportunities, and it's been a great insight from Steve. And thanks very much for your forecast, Steve, over over several events, and it gives a great insight and gives from our point of view, we can link into all what actually happened, and that's really interesting because as sailors, we maybe don't pay as much attention to the forecast as we might, and actually it's a great insight to how we're going to plan what we're going to do on the water, which is great. And so really just following on here from the having got to the first beat to mark number 1, on our way in the top third to the windward mark, we need to start thinking about, are we on a lift, are we on a header, and that's going to give us an indication to what's happening on the top reach. What I mean by that, are we going to be able to put the spinnaker up? Are we going to be able to plane? You know, do we need to keep the out all on if we're in a single hander? Do we need to ease it? What you know, where is the wind? So it was very shifty, and I must have taken about 15 or 20 videos across that top reach, and the wind was in various different patterns as it was going across. So in the early stages, that reach was quite tight, but it became broader on some of the other laps. So you have to plan ahead, and what that's going to do, it's going to shape whether you're going to stay on for 1 or 2 boat lengths that the wind would mark, so you can hoist for spinnaker if you're a spinnaker boat, hoist it, and then put yourself back onto the run line, and you can hold the kite to the next mark. For an ilka or a topper, you're probably just going to sail. Well, you're going to sail the shortest route across there. But depending on the boat you're in, you might want to sail 2 boat lengths further so you can carry a spinnaker, because the secret to winning the Sailjuice series is to sail the shortest possible course as quick as possible. You're trying to beat the clock. And to do that, you need to have a spinnaker flying. So plan ahead for that top reach. I think it's key. Once you're on the top reach, you need to keep in clean air. Okay, so you might need to sail a little bit higher if you're in traffic, or you might need to go super low. Super low wasn't an option because the reach was quite tight. So you had to sort of like go high if you were going to go around anything on Saturday. The other key thing is, are you coming from behind and attacking? If you are, what boat is ahead of you, and how much of a berth do you need to give it? An example would be if you were trying to overtake a snipe. It's a real challenge. If you're in a spinnaker boat, you've got to give them a wide berth, whereas other boats might be easier to get around. So just got to think, how am I going to get around them? And in the other position, if you are the snipe, you're going to defend, and you've got the opportunity to lift spinnaker boats up and stop them coming over you. So it's just thinking ahead, keeping your head out of the boat, as Steve mentioned, but it is the secret to light wind sailing and looking at the big picture. So that's the top reach, Simon.
Yeah, okay. So it's got a bit of video.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of video on here. So here we've got one of the ISO guys. We've got Bob on the line here. This is a bit of a luffing battle. If you can see if the clarity is good, between I think Rob Howlett and who luffed up Bob. And if you pan to the right, you can see where the run line is. So nothing wrong with this, but the impact of that is you're being taken away from where you want to go. And that's not the real thing I'm worried about here. I'm actually going to focus, we'll come back to this a few times, but really what I want to focus on is the ISO with the grey kite, which I think is Rob Howlett. So it luffed Bob up and had a clean lane, but then decides to drift down and ultimately tangles with, I think, Aaron Holman in a Merlin on the mark. And the result of this is a collapsed kite and no boat speed, which isn't necessarily the right thing to do, because having won against Bob here, who's on the line here on the call, Bob catches up and has a better run into this mark, having sailed a longer distance. So Rob should be further, he's just coming around the mark now, it should be further ahead. So if you are high, why would you go high and then super low and entangle yourself in? So you just need to think how you're going to attack that mark. And it was just one example of that. And here, that ISO ends up really low and slow, where it should have been 75 meters further forwards. So, you know, if you rewind to the beginning here, when we get to the end, just think about, you know, if you are going to luff somebody up, what's the impact, and then don't give it away having won it. Is what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yeah, we'll just let that fit and we'll replay in a minute. Yeah. Which race was this, man?
It's dropping off. I want to say it's probably race 2.
Yeah, look at those clouds.
I might be wrong in that. Yeah. It's gone quite light. So yeah, so there was quite a lot in here and some interesting good stuff. So yeah, don't go too high here, and you can see where the run line boat is. So the wind's gone behind a little bit here because everybody's managing to get their spinnakers and get high. So the wind's gone right here, which you can plan for, so you've got a bit more risk. So If you look at the GP, subtly different here. There's lots going on. The GP really well sailed here by Jasper Barnum and Graham Sexton. As we go around here, you see some super crew work here who managed to pull the pole back super gently, stood up in the boat now here, to keep that kite filling as they change angle and go low. The Osprey doesn't do that, and he's forced to go high. So the GP does a really good job of managing to keep the kite going and go low, so sailing a shorter distance, which was good. Interestingly here as well, this Merlin jibes off into the middle and has now got to sail through all the dirty air of those boats that are coming down this reach. So you've got to think carefully about jibing onto the inside. You might have a good reason for it, but certainly something to think about. So yeah, a whole raft of interesting things happening here.
Yeah, so a bit of private battle between these eyes, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, yes, yeah, which is great. Yes, the battle of the new boats.
We had to beat the champ, Simon.
Absolutely, yes. Just put them back in their place. Yes, so you'll be able to tease him on.
Did you beat him, Bob, in that race?
In the first, yes, that's race one. We beat him in the first race, but it was all downhill after that. We had a few issues in the boat.
It was one of those days. So lots to think about on the top reach, and it's just planning ahead really, and trying to keep yourself out of traffic. And that was just one of many examples. I just chose that because there's quite a lot going on.
Yeah, quite a few points come out of that, don't they? Right. So, which one's this then?
So this is similar. So this is Mark 3, and again, is it heading? Is it lifting? When can I put the kite up? So this is another ISO, which is in the middle. It's the red one, which I think Andy Sharp is the crew on board this one. So the opportunity here to get their kite up well earlier than they have done, and as you go around the mark now, at mark number 3, the kite is just going up, but they're now subtly in the lee of the K6 that's going across. And they're going to spend the next 15-20 seconds getting that kite to fill, and you can see the boat speed is diminished. And this is again one example. There were lots of boats that had this issue. So, reflecting back, when we watch this again, when could the guys have got the kite up? I suspect, I believe a lot earlier. So the kite could go up now, and they could have gone higher and had more pace, and wouldn't have been entangled. Well, it wouldn't have been in the dirty air of this K6. So that's the first thing. The other thing to note here is it's really important to keep the spinnaker filled. And by moving forward here, the kite is lost, and can you move without collapsing the spinnaker for the K6? Also, when we go back here, there's the Ilka. The Ilka has been going down the reach and has got lots of time, but hasn't eased the kicker. So when they go to bear away around Mark 3, the kicker is on and the boom doesn't go out. So you've got to move and push the boom out manually. Whereas if you ditch the kicker, the boom will go out and the boat will change direction much easier. And these are all little subtle points that make a difference regardless of the boat you're in. So, to recap that, if the crew is move and sheet in at the same time, so the kite sheet doesn't go loose. Don't put yourself to leeward of the boat with a bigger sail, and ease the kicker as you watch the Ilka now, so you don't have to push the boom out, because that destroys all the airflow across that rig, and it'll take an amount of time for it to do. So just think about how you might, get around the course. So yeah, lots of little things going on there.
Yeah. Okay.
So this picture here was taken, I think, about 1325, and there had been this is Mark 3, so it had been a huge left shift, and we had to tack to that mark. So very difficult, and the wind literally switched off because it had gone round. It actually went back for the faster boats behind, but interesting.
Yeah, so this is one of the bottom marks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is the wing mark. Yeah.
And just a quick point there, you can see all of those cumulus clouds downwind of the sailing area, so they've kind of disappeared off the back of the race course, and this is kind of what gets left in the gap, which I think this picture illustrates really nicely.
Yeah.
And inevitably, when the wind shifts, it generally drops, and actually it comes back in because it's flick-flacking between the two. And actually, I think it goes back again, and which is the classic sign that it's about to go, isn't it? Which is really interesting from a sailor point of view.
Yeah. But well, fascinating day, and I guess a day of two halves, or one and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Had a bit of everything, didn't we?
We did. So I mean, really to like summarize, you've got to look at the forecast. So there's plenty of great technology out there, whether it's on an app or we've got, in our case, Steve, who has done the forecast. Look at that, and then see what. Let me just switch my computer on. It's having a meltdown. There we are, all good. So it's really important. You look at the forecast, and then that can sort of shape your plan before you've left for shore. So you've already got an idea as to what you're doing, and in doing that, you're switched on for the day's racing. Because it's light winds, you need to keep yourself in clean air, and you need to plan ahead so you don't end up in a cluster of boats, which makes it such a difference. If you get stuck in wind shadow, it literally is the most frustrating place to be, which we've all done. We've all had a bit of a shocker, but it's trying to minimise those times or trying to avoid them. The other thing which I haven't mentioned in the thing is there's always more wind around the outside of the racetrack when you've got a large number of boats due to friction. So you tend to get more wind around the outside. So therefore, what I mean by that is if you come to Mark 3 or something and you jibe back into the middle of the trapezoid course, there's likely to be less wind there. So I would be reluctant to do it because you're blanketed and the wind would more likely bend and go around the outside. So it's always an interesting thing. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you should bang a corner on the beach. You should sort of generally play the shifts, but just an interesting thing that, when you're going downwind, you might not want to go back into the middle.
Right. Okay. So that's the end of this series, and we finish off this Saturday at the RYA Dinghy Show at Farnborough. Hopefully a few of you can join us. About 100 prizes to give away. I think there's some of the prize winners on this call tonight, but do come along. It's really another review of all the events, isn't it, Simon? So we can summarise them all and really celebrate all the winners.
Yep, and always good to go to the Dinghy Show as well, Simon. It's always a great day out, isn't it? Yeah, it's been more time chatting to fellow sailors, which is great. So always look forward to the Dinghy Show, and we look forward to seeing you at 10:15, Simon, I believe. 10:15,
yeah. We open the show, as we see here. We normally have a packed audience, so do leave plenty of time to get there, because the show I think opens at 10 and it can take 20 minutes to get across the stage, can't it? So it's a busy old show, and great to see everyone, and we'll be going through it, and looking forward to another season. So good evening, everyone, and thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.